Hey, we're back live. Apparently, if you watch us on YouTube, you probably saw the whole fiasco there. But for whatever reason, we think Dieter thinks he's narrowed it down to something in Facebook, and he was mentioning, which I heard also, WhatsApp was down for the day. I mean, that's the era we live in, and it's not comforting when you're struggling to know whether you're broadcasting or not. But it is comforting, at least, to know that you're not the only ones out there. So anyway, welcome to this week's episode of Fearless Flight Live. Dieter and I here tonight to hopefully give you some tips and some insights, to generate some insights. Eric and Diane have the evening off. And have you guys got any snow up there yet?
No, thankfully we don't. We actually have a period of relative warmth and calm, which is really nice. It's actually,
well, we finally broke 60 and we're gonna get down to 58 tonight, so it's nice. I don't have to get up at the crack of dawn to ride my bike and everything. I can wait till the middle of the day sometimes now. Nice. But anyway, Fearless Flight Live, you know the drill. If you've been here before, this is something we do to help people who have a fear of flying, people who know somebody who has a fear of flying, and people who just want to know more about flying, aviation, and the airline industry. It's our pleasure and our joy to talk to you every week. And so tonight, again, I want to remind you all, if you have not joined our Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather Facebook group, please do so. It's a great place to meet people in various stages of overcoming their fear of flying. Mm-hmm. The first thing that we opened and we wanted to talk about was this whole notion of our inner thoughts and what happens when something in the news catches your attention. Last week we did in fact talk about attention, and okay, let me see. 1 second, folks. Well, now what happened?
Okay, we're seeing your email.
Yeah. Okay, let me try it again. Okay. Oh, there we go. And there, now we got it. Okay. Okay, so what happens when you see a headline like this? And this is a real headline, came out on around the 21st or so, and this is one of them. There was a Mexican or Spanish airline flying from Spain to Argentina airline, I think, flying from Spain to Argentina, and they hit some turbulence over the zone of transvergence there, right around the equator, over the middle of the Atlantic there, and things didn't work out so well. This was kind of some of the chaos. There was a variety of pictures, as you well know. When something like this happens, everybody gets out there, or everybody who's not scared to death gets out their cell phone, takes a bunch of pictures of it right away. And then of course there were people who there's some debate as to whether or not the pilots had given them ample warning. And you know what we say, the best protection against something like this is to always remain seated with your seatbelt fastened, unless you absolutely have to be up and out of the airplane. Again, and I'm not going to focus on this that much, but the way to keep yourself safe is to keep your seatbelt fastened. And I guarantee you, these 12 people that got hurt were not strapped in. And I don't mean to cast any dispersion on them. It's just a fact of life. And so where does my mind go? My mind goes to the safety and the fact that this is a reality and it's going to happen. There's no way that we're going to go until the world's end in the history of aviation without another turbulence accident or incident like this. And so the thing is to observe the rules and to not get caught up on it. But what happens? What pops into your mind? Okay, just let you ponder that for a minute. You can put a comment in remarks there in Facebook, or a comment on YouTube. And these are some things that popped into people who would put comments down on this. And one, said, clear our turbulence, completely unpredictable, which you all know. And then he emphasized, as I did, that's why the crew always announces that when you're in your seat, stay buckled in, and regardless of whether the seatbelt sign is down or not. And if you have to get up when you get back, refasten your seat. And somebody else jumped on and said, absolutely correct. And even if the seatbelt is comfortably loosened when you doze off or for sleeping, you still will likely remain seated in there unless it's so loose that it didn't make a difference. But that's the best advice that anybody could give. And then somebody now we see. So these are what these people were thinking, okay? And we know what you're thinking, and we'll touch on those in a minute. But these are some of the humorous, the funny bunnies that come out and said, well, landed safely despite the turbulence, so I knew it couldn't be Aeroflot, which is a reference, a slighting reference to the Russian airline Aeroflot. And then somebody jumped right on and says, oh yeah, I flew Aeroflot once, and the lack of in-flight safety protocol was rather shocking. Landing in someplace in the former Soviet Union, their passengers were getting things out of the overhead bins before the wheels even touched the ground. A group in front of me had 2 seats folded forward, using it as a card table and place card. So Aeroflot does have somewhat of a reputation of being kind of loosey-goosey with the rules and stuff like that. So but let's talk about what's probably bouncing around your mind. What if I had been on that flight? Okay. And here comes all the inner voices. That could have been me. I knew that could happen. And why didn't the pilots do something? Or could they have done something? Why didn't they change altitudes, or why didn't they give more notice or whatever? And while all of those things may be popping around your mind, the point is not what's popping around your mind. It's the point that what pops around your mind, okay, or pops into your mind. And that's what we call that little inner voice that you've heard me refer to so much. And that's the essence of the nature of fear of flying. If attention that we talked about last week, you remember our discussion last week, we talked about how attention is the boss of the brain, and you have no control over where your attention goes. But if attention is in fact the boss of the brain, then our inner voice is that mechanism that tries to make sense of what we're paying attention to. Chatter is a specialized form of our inner voice or format, and it's when we get stuck thinking in a very narrow way about something. And you've heard me refer to this as obsessive compulsive thought loops, where you get stuck one right in another. So I just want to introduce you to the notion of chatter and address this symbolically as when your inner voice has thoughts that spontaneous pop into your head. What do you do with that? What's it all about? Okay. And so we're talking about how to control that inner voice. Remember how you've heard me say that the difference between you sitting there with anxiety that triggered by flying and me sitting right next to you is what's going through our minds. And while I'm just like you in terms of my attention gets triggered sometimes, if I were sitting on this airplane and went through turbulence, just not unlike you, I would get startled, and I would pop up, and maybe even with a moment of a less than rational fear or thought, but it's going to go back rather rapidly because I've got a mechanism in my mind. I've created an alternative to that inner voice in there that wants to panic in your mind. And so what we want to find out, our goal then to overcome our fear of flying, is what to say when you talk to yourself. And we're all familiar with that inner voice, right? It's talking to you right now. Some of you are, as we speak, aren't giving me your full attention. You're thinking about maybe a time when you did have turbulence, or maybe somebody just hollered at you. How long are you going to be on that computer? Or you had a child come up to you and say, "Hey, Mom, I need your help." Okay, and so those things can break up. Get your inner voice out of a rut maybe, but we're all subject to the same forces, and that is that inner voice that seems to come from a mind of its own. And it's not always bad, right? It sometimes serves us well, and at other times it drives us literally nuts. Okay. The good news, science shows that we can change the way we engage our inner voice. As you've heard us say, our thesis is we can change the way we think about flying. And that's the ultimate goal to get over this. Your inner voice is like the Swiss Army knife of the human mind. It has so many features and benefits to it. And it keeps information, one of the biggest ones is it keeps information active in your head. So if you go to the grocery store, for example, and you're like me, and you had a list when you set out, but 30 seconds after you get going, you forget what was on the list. And unless you use your cell phone or like I do, and where you can shout out with Alexa and tell her to put something on your list so you'll have it, you're walking down the grocery store. What happens? Well, you start to go over your list in your mind. So that's a real positive thing, that inner voice. What was it? Bread, milk, Halloween candy, whatever. You start mulling things over in your mind with that inner voice, and you silently repeat those items. It's actually, your inner voice is actually related to our working memory system, and it's fundamental to our ability to navigate and be effective in the world. But it lets you do a lot of other things as well, sexier things like tell stories, and that has a double-edged sword to it, right? So when things don't go right, like hitting turbulence, it says, "Oh my God, we're all going to die." Or worse, you might not be one of those that says we're all going to die, but you might be one of those people that says, death would be a welcome respite from the misery that I'm in right now. So regardless of what goes on in your head, it's just the power of that inner voice. And either way, regardless of what you're thinking about, most of you recognize that you're trapped. And good or bad, when you feel trapped like that, you can't escape your thoughts. So it's not so much thinking about being trapped in the airplane, which many of you report to me is the main crux of claustrophobia. It's the fact that you get trapped in your thinking. And think about that, okay? It's not when they close the door that you're trapped. It's when your mind gets activated and that little inner voice starts kicking off and the autopilot gets going. That's what traps you. And not being able to escape our mind. However, the positive side of that is that's where our ingenuity and creativity comes from. And in fact, many of you, the more creative you are, the more intelligent you are, and you've heard me say this over and over, the bigger the problem with thinking up those catastrophic thoughts that you do. And the fact that our creativity comes out of that same place there, you have thoughts about how you come up with a problem, not necessarily flying, but you have thoughts about how you're going to solve X. And then, you're walking, driving traffic home, you take a walk through the woods or through a park or something like that. And voila, out of nowhere, seemingly, comes a thought through that same inner voice that helps you find a solution. Okay. So the essence of that inner voice is to capture the energy from that and use it to our ability, and not to surrender to the negative things that we tend to surrender to. And like I said, either way, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and either way you feel trapped. So what we want to do is encourage you all to join us for November's live group coaching call. That'll be coming up on November 17th. That's the third Saturday in November. And what we're going to talk about is managing the chatter, what to say when you talk to yourself. And you can join us by registering for the coaching webinar. And remember, if you do it before October 31st, midnight there, you get things at half price. And if you attended, for anybody out there who attended last Thursday's coaching session, if you haven't yet, please put a comment on Facebook about what that was all about, so people can get an idea of how that might benefit them. Okay. And let's ask Dieter back here in case we have any, if we still have followers with us tonight, based on the issues that we might have been having with Facebook here. And he was going to make sure that we have the link in there to the either the coaching session or the if you want. The best deal is to sign up to be in our membership club, because you're going to get everything for half price if you sign up by midnight, October 31st. And hey, Dieter, if you want, can you put that slide up there with the
yeah. I will. And so just as a little update, Facebook, the live stream feed is inoperable. It's not working, but we are live currently on YouTube. And Jim is saying he's gonna make sure that he's gonna register in time for this one.
Yeah.
And so all I'm gonna say, Jim, since you already are in the Fearless Flyer Club, just go to the student portal there, and there's a link directly to register because you're already in the membership. So but for everyone else, I actually put the link. Yeah, I actually put the link in the YouTube chat as well. And what Ron was talking about, let me just let's try and get here. Yeah, it's really difficult to say what happened, but we just don't have Facebook here tonight.
Okay.
However, this is so what Ron was talking about is that until October 31st, if you are interested and willing to check out our Fearless Flyer Club monthly membership, which will officially start in November, but as a kind of like a sneak peek, we're gonna make the entry to that half price, or you can just the webinar on its own is $47. And but if you're interested in checking out the membership, then as of today, you still got 6 days left, and you'll see all the things that are included. So for example, the first class monthly is regularly will be $57, but if you are signing up in the next 6 days, it's only going to be $28.50 for that first payment. And not only do you get group coaching, you also get actually access to our Fearless Flight Kit. You get access to our How to Overcome Fear of Flying 101 video course, and our Putting Mindfulness into Practice 101. If you have previously been a student of our 201 course, you're also going to get access again to the 201 student portal. And we also threw in 3 more audiobooks: Flight Deck Confidential Volume 1 and 2, and our Guide to Turbulence and Takeoff audiobook. So all that for your first month, $28.50, and then $57 monthly for as long as you choose to be part of our Fearless Flyer Club. All right, I hope that made sense. And
you know, I just want to say I've been doing this for 35 years, and some of the things that I've learned, the most important one is that the people who get over this, you know, people used to ask me, well, you know, or say, I don't necessarily want to be a frequent flyer. I just want to be able to make this next trip. And so I used to kind of buy into that. And what I learned over the year was I watched people, and there were some that's all they did. But for the most part, the people who stay engaged, they got over it. And it you know, and the sad thing was about half of them had flown without any issues for large portions of their life. And then on one day, it became an issue. So what I found is continuity, which is why we went to this membership model, is really the bottom line. And the other thing is, I found out not until I met Dieter that you can't just do this for free your entire life, and it costs money in this day and age, particularly not just for the internet use and things like that, but to have the constant monitoring of all of the infrastructure and all that, to make sure that when people do want to get to a webinar, or when they do want to get to an online course, that they can get there reliably over time. And those of you who have been with me just notice that just in the Fearless Flight Kit, we switched platforms earlier this year from another one we had, and so some of you lost the link to that, and that's what I'm talking about. So this is my big dream for my whole life, and it's I'm hoping to leave it a legacy, at least leave Dieter in charge when it's no longer time for me to do this, or I disappear one day. So I really hope that you'll take a look at this. We had 5 people take advantage of the lifetime membership, and I mean, that is worth the stuff that it would cost you in just a year if you for just a year if you just did the year membership. So I want to encourage people who are out there, maybe new people that they don't know what to do, where to start, all that. Take a look at that, because it is the way to put the money issues behind you and get involved and just stay connected to our program and overcoming your fear of flying.
I mean, so that Judy is a great example, and you had that conversation with her, and it was so inspiring. So we just put together a short, just a minute and a half of her conversation there with you, and Ron, it's really, if you really think about it, and I can't name Judy by name because I know for a fact that she, before coming to us and Fearless Flight, just the amount of money that she had lost not going on flights that she had purchased, our membership is pale in comparison. If you really think about it that way. But the more important thing is that, and Judy is no stranger to learning. She's a university college professor. So she really could identify with, staying engaged and really going deeper. And for a lot of us in the during the pandemic, we didn't have the opportunity to fly. And so, whatever we might have kind of practiced, we didn't use it. And
Judy realizes the value of continuity and continuation training. Anybody who teaches for as a profession, or if you fly airplanes as a profession, if you work in the back on airplanes as a profession, you have to train regularly. You can't. It's not a one-time deal. And I know myself. I probably spend somewhere around $10,000 every year just to stay current and learn all the latest stuff. The whole subject of next month's coaching webinar is going to be this whole thing on our inner voice. How do you manage that? Because if you learn how to manage that, you're going to be on your way to overcoming your fear of flying. And I'm going to close with a comment from Nicole Jeffers. Now, Nicole has taken the 201 course, which we highly recommend, and she came to the webinar last month, and she wrote me a letter, just the sweetest letter here. She says, "Hey, Capt Ron, thanks for the great session last night, talking about last week's coaching session. I almost backed out as I kept thinking to myself, I don't have claustrophobia issues. I'm worried about all the mechanical things that could go wrong or mistakes that could be made. I quickly realized how close it was all related. It was very helpful to join the group last night, and I hope to join again in November. I am reaching my breaking point with this fear, having missed a trip to the Bahamas in March with my husband, and then this past September, I missed a trip to Jamaica with my entire family. My oldest wants to go to college in Florida, and I need to be able to see her when I want to. I am super motivated. As a matter of fact, she wants me to take her on a college visit to Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers on May 8th, or on November 8th, rather. We would fly down and back in a day, as long as it's not raining, not because of the flight, but because we don't want to tour a campus in the rain, which is an interesting transition for Nicole. I have no changes to make to last night's session. It was fantastic. I love the breakouts, and I love the visualizations. I left with a lot of tips for my next flight. I once had a therapist who told me, with regard to my anxiety, to think of it by like being in a tug of war battle. I am on one end and the anxiety monster is on the other end. We keep battling and battling and pulling and pulling. What's the best way to win? Simply to drop the rope, accept and surrender. Anyways, my only suggestion would be to start an hour earlier for us East Coasters. We want to, but those folks on the West Coast, then they're not home for work yet. So we struggle with that all the time. Ending time after 11 p.m. is hard for me. but it's just a once a month thing, and it's worth every second. Have a great weekend, and thank you for all the wonderful work you do, Nicole Jeffers. So thanks again, Nicole, and thanks to all of you out there. Thanks, Dieter, again, for helping me make this possible, and we will see you next week again for another episode of Fearless Flight Live. Have a great weekend, you guys. Bye-bye.
All right.